What makes us human? What separates us, say, from some series of coding? These are the questions we've been asking for the last decades, specifically with the emergence of artificial intelligence in our everyday lives. If AI goes on like this, while walking, talking, and executing human actions, could it one day become a moral dilemma? Could AI, as androids, obtain human capabilities? Since humans have been developing technology and celebrating our achievements, we too have been questioning what these advancements may one day bring. That's why the science fiction genre, with its fascination with exploring the unknown, both literally and figuratively, creates such a perfect environment for us to understand it. Since its emergence, AI has been represented in film in numerous ways, from something of seduction, a replacement for lost love, surveillance, means of labor, childlike saviors of humanity, and most of all, something that brings destruction. Films such as Metropolis, Blade Runner, and The Matrix all depict AI in some fearful yet human fashion, trying to understand the question of what if, while simultaneously questioning where the line exists between human and machine. The video game Detroit Become Human is another sci-fi narrative that explores all of these themes, but it does so in a different way. By having the player navigate the narrative as an android, and by giving them the freedom to choose how the story progresses, Detroit Become Human presents a moving narrative about the implications of autonomy and agency within AI and machines, therefore encouraging empathy and exploring what it means to be human. Released in May of 2018, Detroit can be described as a visual novel and an adventure game, wherein the player has complete agency in how the narrative plays out. When playing, one can choose a nefarious or pacifist route. This level of interactivity is what makes the story so compelling. You, the player, are at the center. It is up to you to decide how it ends for these characters. All the power is in your hands. At its core, the game tells the story of android liberation, navigating through 3 different characters, and how their stories intertwine. In this presentation, I will mainly focus on Connor's narrative, the detective android. By the start of the story, there have been several reports of androids becoming deviant, meaning something has gone awry and they have neglected to execute their regular coding. Connor, by his own description, is an android sent from CyberLife, the in-game manufacturer of the androids, to crack down on these instances and to figure out what's going on, and ultimately put an end to it. He is meant to be authentically machine, entirely AI, and nothing more. His arc, as the player watches it unfold, presents the most change. While he fights to understand what makes these androids deviant, he too must fight this inside himself. What will he prove to be in the end? The choice is up to the player. Connor's story opens up with him confronting his first deviant ever. The player gets the idea that he is a fairly new android, but he is proclaimed to be the most advanced prototype. The deviant has managed to kill one of its owners and capture another, holding her hostage on the balcony. Connor approaches with caution, scanning the area to understand his best approach. When he does reach the android, it shouts,
"You thought I was part of the family. You thought I mattered. But I was just their toy. Something to throw away when you're done with it."
The first thing Connor learns is that this deviant is feeling something akin to a human emotion, anger, and then fear.
I don't want to die.
In each instance that Connor has with the deviant, he learns more about the emotions that they face, a fear of an end. As the androids wake up, they begin to fear that they have something to lose, whether that be their life or something that they have an attachment to. The only thing that Connor finds that links these deviants together is an obsession with something called RA9, a version of God to these androids. He discovers that once the idea of end gets into their head, when they feel that they must make their own choices because there will be some cost, when there is fear, this is when they break the code. It is clear that as the deviants break, they begin to exhibit emotionally charged responses, the same as a human. But Connor is not convinced of anything, being left with questions and doubts about these supposed feelings.
Its decision wasn't planned. It was driven by fear.
Androids don't feel fear.
Deviants do. They get overwhelmed by their emotions and make irrational decisions.
The other man in the clip is Hank, Connor's reluctant human partner and self-proclaimed android hater. Connor's relationship with Hank is another important factor in telling this story. It is the bond that the two have that pulls human and machine together, allowing for the two to find parts of themselves in the other. From the moment they meet, it is clear that Hank is not a fan of Connor's. A drunk and a cop with several disciplinary actions in the last couple of years, Hank is a stubborn man with seemingly no emotion anymore. He makes it clear his disdain for having to work with Connor, but Connor doesn't back down. This is his mission, what he's been programmed to do. While dealing with the deviant problem, Connor learns about Hank, and Hank unwillingly does the same. As their relationship grows, Connor too begins to exhibit his own emotional responses, which Hank questions. The more real the situation gets for the both of them, the more one learns about the other.
Those two girls, they just wanted to be together. They really seemed in love.
They can simulate human emotions, but they're machines. And machines don't feel anything.
What about you, Connor? You look human, you sound human, but what are you really?
I'm whatever you want me to be, Lieutenant. Your partner? Your buddy to drink with? Or just a machine?
The most pivotal moment of the game happens towards the end, at Elijah Kamsky's mansion. This is the man who created CyberLife, now living only with his androids in a house in the middle of nowhere, having left the company years ago. With no leads or answers, Hank and Connor find themselves at the doorstep. Then this scene ensues.
I'm sure you're familiar with the Turing test. Mere formality. Simple question of algorithms and computing capacity. What interests me is whether machines are capable of empathy. I call it the Kamsky test. It's very simple, you'll see. Magnificent, isn't it? One of the first intelligent models developed by CyberLife. Young and beautiful forever. A flower that will never wither. What is it really? A piece of plastic imitating a human? Or a living being? With a soul? It's up to you to answer that fascinating question, Connor. Destroy this machine, and I'll tell you all I know. Or spare it, if you feel it's alive. But you'll leave here without having learned anything from me.
Okay, I think we're done here. Come on, Connor, let's go. Sorry to get you out
What's
of here.
more important to you, Connor? Your investigation or the life of this android? Decide who you are. An obedient machine. Or a living being. Endowed with free will.
That's enough. Connor, we're leaving.
Pull the trigger.
Connor! Don't!
And I'll tell you what you want to know.
No matter the choice that the player makes, the effect is the same. After seeing these deviant androids plead for their lives, the player must decide. Should Connor decide to act with empathy, make his own choice, or stay within the confines of his programming? This is something that the player must sit with and seriously consider. You determine his humanity. This choice is the driving force for the rest of the narrative, and what makes this story so impactful. This consideration speaks volumes of empathy and morality.
Fascinating. CyberLife's last chance to save humanity is itself a deviant.
AI is our future. It is not something we can deny. because representations of AI in the media can be misleading, as Meisenholder and Seng write in their article, The Serious Side of Science Fiction. It is necessary to reflect our pictures of AI, that is, be able to realistically assess the consequences of these technologies. Media has oftentimes been used to shape ideas and views of the world, which is why games with narratives such as Detroit may be utilized to encourage ethical reflection on questions that arise about artificial intelligence. Viewing the outcome of all of these kinds of narratives surrounding AI allows us to see the value of the opposite of that which so affects our emotions. In other words, they show us what we want or do not want in the future. Why is it so important to consider this if they truly are just machine? Well, in the article Android Allegories, Detroit and the Philosophical Quest for AI Rights, researchers Habib Saval and Yeliz Doker proposed that the depictions of AI in Detroit serve as a prediction rather than a fantasy. It is representative of an idea of what may happen as generative AI progresses, which raises several moral and philosophical questions. As androids become sentient, we must consider how traditional ethical theories like deontological and utilitarian ethics affect our view of their legal rights. From a deontological standpoint, grounded in duty and moral absolutes, the treatment of the androids in Detroit's universe is deeply unsettling. The inherent worth and rights of a being, organic or artificial, shouldn't be predicated upon their utility or societal perceptions. Interestingly, when humans perceive AI as more human-like, they are inclined to act more ethically. According to a study done on theft and AI in a retail setting, researchers found that people have lower moral intentions toward technologies, like AI and machines, than towards humans. When dealing with another human being or technology they recognize as human, individuals will project more guilt related to a possible violation of their own moral standards. In other words, when they felt a human would catch them in the act, they were more likely to fess up to their error. So, the future we dream of may not be as dark as we think after all. As AI progresses and blurs the line between machine and human, will we act ethically? Of course, I cannot know for sure, but I think the study says a lot about our humanity, especially paired with the narrative of Detroit. But wait, there is something more to be said. In the world of Detroit, androids are considered other. Sure, they are made in the image of human, but they have been pushed below and treated as something lesser. This isn't just about supposed sentient androids and their rights. These stories serve as reflections of our past mistakes. The other character in the narrative, Marcus, tells an entirely different story than Connor. His story fosters political thinking, drawing on several historical parallels. The game takes a progressive stance toward the injustice of the historical oppression of African Americans in the United States. Yet, especially Marcus's choice between a peaceful or a violent approach towards achieving his goals becomes more than a decision that is only based on empathy. It is also a political one. These kinds of representations are important in popular stories because they give a voice to those who have none. By watching Marcus's story unfold and feeling how he does, one can step into the shoes of someone else. They can see things from a different perspective and learn something about themselves. Thus, empathy is explored and, hopefully, taught. After the incident at Kamsky's mansion, Connor reaches a turning point in his journey. By pulling the gun on the android, he recognizes end. He recognizes that there is something he wants, but there is a cost to making a choice, his own choice. He finds himself conflicted, unsure of what he wants. Will Connor become deviant, everything he was meant to destroy? Will he decide to make his own decisions, or will he remain machine?
You showed empathy, Connor. Empathy's a human emotion.
At this point, he has yet to fully break from his coding. It is when he confronts Marcus that the decision must be made. Connor breaking free signifies many things about his own humanity. The ability to choose to do as he pleases, to believe in the finite, to see that there is an end for him too. By the end of the game, he has something worth losing, and he must fight to save it on his own terms. Detroit Become Human is a fascinating game about empathy, humanity, and love. By playing as the android, an emotional connection is established between human and machine, between the real and the manufactured. When the player cannot even distinguish the difference, the message is clear. This is what makes us human, this connection. Human or not, the feeling still exists. It is shown through Hank and Connor's relationship, and through the player's relationship to Connor as well. At the end of the day, AI is a reflection of our humanity. We can either embrace it or accept it, but it is something that is born of us. Perhaps it is closer to human already than we think.
Maybe there's something to this. Maybe you really are alive. Maybe you'll be the ones to make the world a better place.